All right, sorry, guys. Let's see.
This is where it's backwards on the YouTube screen.
But it's also not.
Once you get YouTube started, let's go back to Zoom.
Sorry,
We can
guys.
see, yeah.
Some kind of a delay.
This is where it's backwards on the YouTube screen.
But it's also.
Once you get YouTube started,
Okay,
let's go back to Zoom.
Sorry,
We can
guys.
see, okay, Roberta and Tim, you're still hearing us, right?
Some kind of a delay.
This is where it's backwards. And
on
Roberta,
the
you're
YouTube
muted right
screen.
now, but you're hearing us okay? You started, let's go back to Zoom.
Sorry, guys.
No, something's happening now where I'm hearing what you just said, but I'm hearing also
This is where
discourse previously over it.
Right now, but you're hearing us okay? Hearing what? Let's go back to Zoom.
Sorry,
No,
guys.
no, something's happening now where I'm hearing what you just said, but I'm
It might have
hearing
been us
also
chattering earlier. Are you
discourse
hearing that now?
previously over it.
We're getting feedback.
Yeah, that's feedback. So I can hear you, but no, something's happening now where I'm hearing what you just said. but I'm
It might have
hearing
been us
also
chattering earlier. Are you hearing that now?
previously over it.
We're getting feedback.
Yeah.
Are there
feedback. So I
maybe
can't-
two versions of the meeting are going on, and we're getting?
Yeah, I'm wondering
Right.
if YouTube's mic is.
It might have
been us chattering earlier. Are you hearing that now?
We're getting feedback.
We
Yeah.
need
Are there
to try it again.
maybe two versions of the meeting are going on, and we're getting?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is, how's the sound now, Tim?
There are two versions.
We're getting feedback. Are there
Try it again.
Yeah,
maybe
you
two
think we
versions
can
of the
shut down
meeting are
YouTube
going
and
on?
just
and we're
record
getting?
this? Is, how's the sound now?
I think that may be it. Could you hear me?
Yeah, but we lost the screen.
Okay, I'm not hearing the feedback now.
Okay.
Can't see it.
Good that we can laugh.
You know,
I think it's okay.
I got out of email, so.
Yeah, but I think.
Actually, this is okay. At least we have the longest day
We
of
got
the year to do this.
I'd forgotten all about that.
solstice.
Being retired adjusts everything.
Yeah.
You can go keep track of what day of the week, like
Yeah.
less dates and things like.
I know. it's like-
Retired from that, totally retired. And she says they're, the way she keeps track of time, is there's 60 days and then it's the day of the big paper.
And of course, being a newspaper guy, I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Here, wait. Here we go. Got it. All right.
Okay, do we have our sound problem fixed now?
I think so.
Yes,
Okay, and Roberta, you're hearing us okay? And,
yes, loud and clear.
okay, sounds good. We will now call this meeting of the Planning Commission of Harpers Ferry to order. It is the regular meeting on June 21st, 2022. We are starting at 7:16 p.m. And Jim, could you read the public announcement?
Of course. On further notice, the Corporation of Harpers Ferry governing and deliberative bodies will hold meetings and/or hearings virtually via Zoom webinar, which provides for public participation during the public comment period when applicable and when posted on the agenda. Alternatively, the public may watch meetings by YouTube, video live stream, or listen by telephone. These options comply with the Open Governmental Meetings Act.
Thank you. Are there any concerns about the agenda?
No.
Okay.
No.
If no objections, then we'll let the agenda stand as presented. And let's move on to the minutes for our meeting of May 17th. Did everyone get that and has had a chance to look that over?
Yes.
And I know, Paul, you had one suggestion or concern?
I just thought the word unauthorized as it pertained to vehicles on the street, it was not appropriate as long as they're licensed, registered, and insured.
Uh-huh.
You know, that they don't require any other authorization.
Now, I think we included that in quotations. Did he use that term, Jim? Are you remembering that?
I don't recall.
Okay. Is everyone okay with striking that
I
in,
agree
since
with
we
that.
don't remember that specifically?
Yes,
Okay,
I move that the minutes be approved as presented.
I second that.
okay. Any other discussion, any other concerns?
No,
Okay, all in favor of that with that one change, please indicate by raising hand or saying aye.
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 Okay, unanimous there. Thank you. Let's move on to the application for alteration of the right-of-way. Our colleague Paul Thomas, I'm going to ask you to speak now as not a member of the commission, but as the applicant for this.
So we have and have had a stone driveway since we purchased the property. And I have a 1 and a 2-year-old grandchildren, 1 boy, 1 girl. And the whole reason I was going to do it in concrete is a lot of the kids play in the street. No kids are going to play in the street if I'm standing there. I will not allow it. It's so I was going to pave with concrete, a pretty significant portion. It's probably could park 4 cars. But I'm torn about that because I also understand the stormwater implications and things and all of the focus that we're putting on it. So right now I've taken kind of a back seat to that, thinking I've never needed this. It's not something I need for my vehicles. We don't have any significant issues. We have our grandkids quite a bit, and we'll figure out. For now, I'd just like to say that I have no immediate plans to move forward with that. I would like the opportunity to consider that for the next month or so, and then I'll either withdraw the application through Kevin Hamilton, or I will ask to proceed with it. But to be honest with you, especially being on the stormwater management team and understanding just how impacted a lot of areas are, I am conflicted at best to proceed with any significant concrete being added.
Okay.
That
Have you also looked at some other?
I want them to be able to ride their trikes in the little bikes, and you can't do it on, you can't do it with strips. You can't do it with, I mean, we could do it with asphalt. I like asphalt even less because the leaching of the oils and like that are equally problematic, and they don't perk any better than the others. There's options.
Yeah, Roberta, you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Craig, and thank you, Paul, for your update on your request for a permit. But just a couple quick questions. I'm looking at your drawing that was submitted to the commission for review, and I have some questions because if you are actually, the area shown in highlighted yellow on your plans, if this is, again, your proposed plan,
Yeah.
then is it your proposed plan or what you were thinking?
The areas in yellow, yes.
Okay, and if you look at your survey, you are actually not doing work in the right of way, according to this drawing. So
It would be close. I think that it came up as the fact that I have to cross the right of way from the street to what I would concrete, and my plan was to go and join it to the street. So I think that probably is maybe a little inaccuracy of me and my highlighter more than anything, but it was, I probably could do that, Roberta, and I thank you for bringing it up, but again, my real, the real issue I have now that I've really rethought it is, we're gonna have to figure out a better place for the kids to play, because I just am really conflicted with the fact of any significant impact that I could have that would adversely impact the projects that we're working on, or, and certainly wouldn't want that to do, although I did talk with all my neighbors before I even submitted the permit request.
Okay.
But it's, I don't think it's in best interest right now, but like I said, I'm gonna take a month or so to think about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that concern. And I don't know, Pat, can you help me on this? That applications are valid for how long without?
Well, there is a time frame where when Kevin gets it, I think it's a 45-day.
For us to respond.
Right.
But what about the applicant?
No, I think as long as you're in contact with Kevin.
I'll give him a call again
And
this
he
week.
understands that you're still thinking about this
I will do
and you
that.
haven't
Yeah.
withdrawn. If things like this have happened before and somebody may send a revision,
Sure.
we just keep it going and mark revised and put it on the board.
I'll make it a point to give him a call this week.
And I do know that he has contacted Landmarks back on May 9th, and I don't think he's heard anything back from Landmarks. So it's not, and they're the ones that we have to, I don't want to say push, but that's the time ticking,
Right.
not you.
Right, and Landmarks was the other consideration that hadn't signed off, so I didn't feel pressed to do it because it's really just a want to do, not a need to do, and because Landmarks, that's what first came up is potentially the challenge, and because I guess concrete hasn't been widely used in Harper's Ferry for parking areas, it was looking for their approval in addition to the
Mhm.
commission's approval to move that forward. But I'll give Kevin a call and
Keep
update him
your-
on
Then
that.
that keeps the email chain going, timeline going, and it's a mutual agreement type
Yeah,
thing.
I will email him
Perfect.
because that's even better.
Yeah.
That gives him what he needs.
And a revision later on, if you have wanted to do something else that would avoid another fee or anything.
Oh, there would be no fee if you decide to pull this. Some of your fee may be returned, like the inspection fees, because they won't do the inspections.
Right,
So
okay.
just keep in touch with him by email, so there's a.
There's a trail, yeah, there's a trail.
Paper trail for both of you.
You got it.
We would like to
Okay.
keep your grandkids safe in that, too, so bear that in mind.
Yep, it's, that, like I say, I mean, it was pretty expensive, but they're the grandkids. That's the only two I'm gonna have. It's,
Yeah,
so we'll figure something out, but we'll find a balance.
okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. Appreciate those concerns and all. Any other comments on that or questions?
Do we need an official action that he's gonna postpone it, or how do we handle that?
I would not think so. He is putting it on hold.
Okay,
And so I don't think any action is needed from us at this
Okay.
point. So
All right,
we'll be happy to add it to the agenda if we are notified about it again. Now, thank you, Roberta. So let's go on to the permit review process. And I know Ken Dill had some ideas to put this into outline form. However, he said he has not been able to do that over this past month, and he was unable to be here tonight. I just heard from him on this today. I do have a suggestion. I don't know whether you all have had a chance to look out. I believe I sent my draft flow chart last month and then again yesterday or today,
Yes.
this morning, I guess. And I'd be happy to hear any comments you have on the content of that. But my idea was, if there are no concerns on the content of it, that I would like to take this draft to town staff and work with them on putting it into a legible, intelligible, electronic form using flowchart
Chris, I
software.
I think that's way too convoluted. A flow chart is linear. That's not linear. I think I would say we should wait for Mrs. Dill to produce his flow chart.
Well, the thing is, it's based on a lot of possibilities in the permit process. I'm not sure that it can be reduced or simplified more that where it would be helpful to anyone. For instance, we have this question, does it involve alteration of the public right of way? If the answer to that is yes, Planning Commission is the first stop. If the answer to that is no, then it's got to go somewhere else. And what may be confusing, Jim.
Yeah, I'm not confused. I just think it's not usable.
Well, that's where I'm hoping maybe town staff can help us. If we could change it, my goal was to put it all on one page, but if that's not possible, maybe to have each of those situations, town right of way, repair for less than 15% of the structure, all of those things, and have a separate sheet for each one.
I think we should have town staff look at it.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea.
If you remember what Debbie did with the purchasing program,
Yeah.
and it's pretty thorough, and
Okay.
it's like, and it's very easy to read, and you're right, you're gonna go here, yes, you take this path, no, you take this path, and
Yeah.
it goes from there, and it gets
And I
kind
think
of close, but.
I think Jim is right. It's probably too complex for one page, but
But I think the town staff can help with that too, because they'll also, they know what the points are that they deal with, and I think that they'll be able to assist in streamlining it as much as it can be. And to your point,
And you've got two raised hands, I don't know who this is.
okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, Roberta, you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Chris. I'd be happy to volunteer to work with you and Ken Dill to help him if he's got some time constraints to get this flow chart going. I have some experience doing these.
Yeah. Would you like to take a stab at it with my draft and your reading of the ordinances to see if any revisions need to be made? And then if you want to tackle any of the presentation too, you could before we took it to town staff. And I think you're on mute there.
Okay, yes, I'd be happy to contact Ken Dill and ask him if he needs some of my assistance or if I could help him in any way before we make our presentation to staff. Now that we have an outline form and kind of got a good direction and how it kind of flows, it's
Yeah.
easier to put in a linear form. Yes.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. Thank you for volunteering for that. Tim,
Thank you.
how about you? You have a question or comment there?
Yes, the other document that just simply lists the from the notes that you took with Bill and the other people, that seems to me a good thing that you could have with it,
Yeah, and it might be that
because that
okay.
has the advantage of sort of the linearity that a shortened version of the flow chart.
I'm thinking, Chris, that something like a dichotomous key. Yes, no, yes, go here, no, go here,
Mhm.
would be more feasible, more usable.
Well, that's what I have here. It's just that there's several different situations all on one
We
page.
can't cover every
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. Well, yeah, we've got to cover every situation because the goal is when a permit comes in, who gets this? What do you have to consider? But,
I'd like to see what town council, the town staff does with it.
okay,
And we can check.
I have another question, Chris.
okay.
Actually, two. We're deliberately leaving out the demolition aspect of any kind of permit, right?
No, my chart had demolition on it.
Oh, okay. All right. And that
Yeah,
answers
let's
that.
see. On my chart, if you're looking at that, Tim, it's it's southwest from the OCO.
Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to ask is, I just had a dim recollection of something that came up where Landmarks was involved in it, maybe as a consultant. I don't know. But just some dim memory of a particular issue that Landmarks had to be involved in. Am I just misremembering that, or?
Well, yeah, you're remembering some of that correctly, Tim. One of the issues is that by our ordinances now, as they work, Landmarks on these permits is advisory only. And although, I know BZA has decided to consider, they always consider their decisions and advice pretty seriously. So that was part of the reason that led us to the need for some kind of a presentation so that everyone understands that.
Right. So that it
and-
would be, so it
Go
would be
ahead.
it'd be up to the BZA when they got involved, if they wanted Landmarks advice, they'd inform them.
Yeah, and
Okay.
likewise,
Yeah.
if we have a, I'm
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Yeah, likewise, if planning gets an application to do something, there may be issues like concrete or like the stone wall becoming cinder block or something that we're kind of dealing with earlier that we want to ask HLC's advice, but the decision basically is ours, not
Okay,
Historic Landmarks.
thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
And Roberta, back to your effort, I think Tim is right. I think that other sheet that went out today and that actually came from Pat in the town office, that may be helpful. A little too simple to get all of the details that I'm looking for, but that might be another way, a little closer to Ken's outline idea.
Yes, and then I think Jim is correct. We need to have, is it yes or no? And what happens when it's yes, where does it go? When it's no, where does it go? And I think that is your ultimate goal. And to be quite frank, that is a Gantt chart and a flow chart. So you're working on it and you're getting there. It's just needs to be fine tuned like you guys are doing. So be happy to help and get this done.
That'd be great.
I move that we table this for now, return to it once town staff submit their work and once Roberta submits her work.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that motion.
I move that we table this for now and revisit it once the town staff revises Mr. Craig's work and once Ms. Roberta Curry, you submit your work. We can put both documents on the table and discuss.
Okay, so that we will continue doing homework on this, Roberta, and I will go ahead and talk to town staff, but actually it would be nice to see your ideas before I do that. So does that sound compatible with
Oh,
what
yeah,
you're,
that was the
what you're
motion,
moving?
yeah.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Okay, if not, indicate you're in favor of that with a hand up or an aye.
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 Okay, looks like unanimous. Thank you. So that takes care of our old business. And everything else that I have here is just reports. And I will handle the first item, the safety concerns at 991 Putnam Street. When I took this to town council in our meeting last week, we ended up referring the issue to a sign committee, a sign subcommittee, consisting of Pat Morse on town staff and councilors Christian Pechakonis, Storm DiCostanzo, and myself. And we are going to meet on the 30th of this month, which, yeah, and that'll be at 10:30 in the morning. And we're going to take a little walk around Camp Hill and maybe over to Putnam as well to survey signs as they now stand and to kind of brainstorm and get ideas, and then we'll start meeting. I would welcome anyone who would, on Planning Commission, who would like to be a part of that and who's available in town and to continue on the subcommittee if anyone would like to be on that.
We have a time.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, so that is what's going on there, and I'll keep you informed on what we end up with and recommendations that go to town council.
Chris, are you actually doing the walk on that day?
Yeah,
So it's on the 30th at 10:30?
30th at 10:30. We're going to meet here at Town Hall and walk around, probably with clipboards or something to take notes on and maybe take some pictures. I think Storm even had some idea of making a flow chart, or I know one flow chart, making a spreadsheet with all the information that's out there right now. And
There's a lot of variation in signs.
Yeah.
I did ask Larry to please go in and try to give us a little inventory of what we might have on hand, but I haven't seen that, especially the neighborhood watch signs.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I know there were 2 in town and they're not up anymore. I bet they're somewhere in that shed. And if we
okay,
have them, we don't have to buy them again.
yeah, that'd be nice. And
I mean, the other question is how necessary is, I mean, I live on a similar dead end on the other end of West Bridge Street. I wrestle with the severity that they feel, or if they're, you know, how sensitive are they to this issue, but I've actually put Putnam Street on, I walk probably 4 days a week. And so I walk that Putnam Street from where I live. I walk that. It's very quiet. It's very quiet.
yeah,
I think it depends too, because when I was getting ready for Music on the Ridge and I was up there prepping, I cannot tell you how many cars came up there and they're looking for the hotel. I mean, I was surprised.
Well,
Even-
that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
And it was like on Thursday, on Friday, of course, on Saturday, and then on Sunday I was up there too. And even Kathy Gray said, oh yeah, you wouldn't believe how many people turn around here. So I think it depends on the day and the time.
I will give that some more thought too, but I appreciate you mentioning that because that's good to know.
But that's a whole different street too.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, that's not even talking about Putnam issue.
Right.
And I don't know why the neighborhood watch sign initially, what I was thinking of, was down on Washington
It is
High
Thursday.
Street.
That's worked
I
out
don't
for me.
remember who created the
Or
neighborhood
why,
watch,
right, yeah.
but it was probably in the 90s. And I mean, I lived there and I mean, I wasn't part of it and I had 2 small kids, but I just know there were signs. So
Okay.
we could probably do some digging around and figure out who created that committee and And if it was just a deterrent,
The other thing about it, though, Paul, that it's raised ongoing concerns that are kind of unrelated to that the specific
Okay,
concerns.
situation, yeah.
Just that both the pedestrians and the tourist drivers in town a lot of times arrive, and there may be a need for additional information to get them to where they want to go. And even since this went out, I got an email from the librarian who said, we hear that you're going to be meeting on signs, and we would love to see a sign up pointing directions to the library for visitors in town.
That makes
And
sense.
so, so hopefully we can look at things beyond the
A little more
restrooms
globally,
and,
yeah. that's fine.
all of that.
And I think there is a safety issue in that there's no sidewalks there. So you're dealing with pedestrian traffic and I really hadn't realized, and maybe it's time of day that I walk, but that's good to know, because I will actually change the time I walk, because I would like to see that. I'd like to see what kind of congestion that does create.
I think the explosion of traffic in this town coincides exactly to the time when the Park Service closed satellite parking. And when the pandemic happened.
oh, I thought you meant on a daily basis when they close. and
Yeah,
then-
but that,
No,
I don't,
you're
I
absolutely
think
correct.
people have gotten in the habit of not going to satellite parking.
Yep.
Coming into town to look for a place.
Well, I also think the urination concern is probably very closely related to ATC being closed.
I feel their pain.
For a long time, yeah.
But we have since identified 3 bathroom areas that we can direct people to that they're just not aware of.
Yes,
We never even thought.
although
about it.
we'll have to clear that with CVB and ATC, and we'll have to make sure they want that
People
not
to-
only to be available, but to be publicized, So would you like to be in on the walk?
I may, what I'll do is if I can do that, I'll be there on the 30th at 10:30.
Be here.
Be
yeah.
here.
Mhm. Sounds great. We'd love to have you. Okay, any other comments, questions, ideas on that issue? Okay, the second item is comprehensive plan update. And I'm sorry, I don't have as much to report on this as I'd hoped. Part of it's related to what budget and finance and town council actually have on their 2023 budget, which starts, by the way, next month, for us on that. But the mayor has given me an outline of how to start interaction with WVU based upon what I find. Our town treasurer or financial officer is out of the on vacation this week, so I'll probably start that in earnest next week.
I think that's a good plan, because the letter I forwarded to you from the WVU professor said he thought we could help us with little or no cost.
Okay,
That's quote unquote.
okay. Paul, can you give us an update on stormwater?
Well, I was hoping actually to get the recap of, we had our first meeting. It was the Thresher Group, I think, is perfectly fitted to this project. I think they bring a tremendous amount of experience. I think their focus is right where it needs to be, because it's not just talking about all the possibilities to fix things. They're very pragmatic about what is applicable, what in this area with the topography we're dealing with the volumes that we're dealing with available funding, which I thought was really great that they brought that into it. They have really good reach into funding sources. And that kind of information it makes the difference in when a project flies or doesn't fly. There's going to be a recap of the meeting we had, which went for probably an hour and 40 minutes. And I will share that once I get my copy with this.
Okay.
But I think that they have extensive experience, but we have unique challenges here between Bolivar and Harper's Ferry, just because of the topography and the way the rivers lay out and where specifically those challenges are. There's going to be, and I don't have dates yet, but there is going to be a starting point when we're going to go into the field, walk back from kind of the points of greatest concern and work back through. One of the things is that apparently there's no great documentation of the existing infrastructure for stormwater management. If you go up by the Charlestown Bank, there's which I know is in Bolivar, but where this is all together, there's this huge storm drain that's created. It looks like it's 6-inch PVC. Nobody knows where it goes.
Wow. Yeah.
So they're talking about how to bring other stakeholders in, whether there is digging, who might take advantage of that, and where funding could come from multiple sources to accomplish some of that. So I think it's going to be intense, but not long term. My guess is he was asked that directly, and he was in the 4-month area from when we take our first walk. So that's a lot of work to do in a short period of time, but it's also kind of how funding goes. You know, funding dries up, and knowing where all that is as we work through this, I think is going to be a really big advantage, because let's face it, we could have the best plan in the world if we can't execute it because of funding, and it sits on a table somewhere, it won't accomplish anything. And I've been suggesting, and I had a nice talk with Storm about it. Actually, I went down and spent probably an hour and a half with Storm at his house to talk about, there's been a group formed in West Virginia of basically climate change to deal with and to evaluate climate change, because the other part of this is the severity and frequency of storms. You know, I mean, used to be 50-year storms were named that because they came every 50 years. And 50-year storms now in a lot of areas are coming annually or even more frequently than that. So it's a reevaluation of what's there. And as you make a fix, you don't make a fix with this if what you deal with is this.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you accomplish nothing. So I think it's critically important that we get good estimates, and I've seen it just in the different areas that I've lived in, different areas that I've worked. It's and weather fascinates me is look across the country of what everyone's dealing with, bring it back here, and we have some very unique challenges and some increasingly severe weather. So I think that if we can dial into those sources of information, in addition to the knowledge, the local knowledge that exists here for what to develop, how can it be developed, and where can we actually do something, I think is critical. So my plan will be to share everything that I can share, bring back to here for every meeting, and just to keep everybody posted with what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I'd almost like to be able to have a regular spot on our agenda, even though it may be an update no longer than this. It's I think they're important updates, and I think that all of you have a lot more experience here than I do, and can I would be happy to be the voice to get things back raised and like that, if that would help. So
For sure. Yeah, we'll make you a standing place on the agenda there. Yeah.
I talked to Storm about this. We were discussing stormwater, and you were saying you wanted to withdraw your permit because you're concerned about impervious surfaces. I do walk past the EPA every day on my way to work, and they have a huge push for rain barrels. And Storm is saying, well, that's not going to impact hugely, but it gets people thinking
Mhm.
about having the water be able to go into the ground, not down to the river. I think the EPA and DC would be interested in helping us do a community rain barrel project. And not only is it rain barrels, there's like a 100-foot perimeter garden. So you have rainwater stored.
A rain garden,
Running
yeah.
down to the river.
And so those and those actually came up in the meeting. We talked about individual efforts and how to reach into the community for things. So a lot of that did get talked about. Storm brought some of that up. But we've had others, and Sam from the Thrasher Group brought that up too, that we'll have to look at where community projects, just like what Jim's talking about, is how do we bring them in? How do we present them, and how do we take advantage of community involvement wherever we can find it? Because rain gardens are actually something that a lot of people could do. And even if they don't want to do rain barrels, if they don't like the aesthetics, they don't want to have to handle it, there's a lot of places that can be channeled and run pretty inexpensively that people could create their own rain gardens, and they can be pretty beautiful and serve a very valuable purpose. So
I think it's good, and it gets people thinking about rainfall.
what I think that's important throughout this is I think that communication to the community, and I'll just kind of jump on what you're saying. I think communication of all of this. I don't think people really realize, unless they're in a place that experiences these challenges, they don't really realize it. You know, it's not in my backyard, it's not my problem. But yes, it is. This is everybody's problem. And it will, if we don't deal with it to the best of our ability, it will be everybody's problem, because the costs that come with this, is whether increasingly is more severe, is going to have significant impacts on everything we do. So
Yeah, and in Harper's Ferry, I wouldn't want to talk about rain barrels without also including cisterns, which, you know, is even a more significant volume, because so many of the historic houses like my own have, you know, cisterns that were historically used. You do, you probably have 3. Okay.
wow.
Yeah, so, you know, I think there's real potential there. You know, when you put all of those together, they could be both a significant aid to that, and also a way for homeowners to save money on their gardening or other water use. Some real potential. Do you have one?
2.
You have 2. Wow. So,
Those cisterns here.
yeah.
Could be a topic.
What other group could have this many cisterns? Come on.
Yeah.
I'm cisternless.
On your list of challenges and considerations for our area, the one that I didn't hear you mention that I know will be considered, especially since the park's involved in this committee,
Yes.
is just our status as a historic district and a national park.
That's actually right, because there's actually 2 facets to that, because it is the national park, and sometimes the difficulty getting the cooperation necessary between governmental entities to actually accomplish things. But they're the ones that are suffering in a lot of ways more than anyone else.
Right.
So I think that they are in it in earnest. They had 3 members there, including the superintendent. But yet another challenge on top of all our other challenges is how do we do that while preserving the historic nature of this town?
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of things that might appear perfectly fitting and acceptable in a town like
Berkeley Springs. They did a ton
well,
of work
Berkeley
at
Springs has some of the same issues, but
but they have a lot more space.
oh,
If
yeah,
you saw what they
yeah.
did, I mean, he brought pictures of all that, and the work that they did under the street, under the sidewalks, and creating rain gardens and all these different things that great storage capacity for water, but
Mhm.
they have a lot more space than we do.
Hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. But I was thinking of the, a town with less historic fabric,
Oh, sure.
things might appear fitting and uh, appropriate there that might not be in,
Wouldn't be,
Yeah.
absolutely wouldn't be. Yeah,
right around here or especially in Lower Town.
yep, absolutely.
So, any other questions or comments for?
I just have one. Can I-
Sure.
can I-
Sure.
On your stormwater study, and I think, is there anyone on the committee from the water department?
No, not at this point.
Okay, so are they taking into consideration at some point we are supposed to be laying new lines?
That was talked about. When I talked about the fact that whenever we're digging anything that we're going to do, one of the efforts that is right at the forefront of that is who else could benefit from these projects and how do we bring other players in, whether it's utilities or, and that could be power, that could be water, but definitely the water with the plans that are already moving forward for water distribution. That absolutely is part of it. So yes.
And I think PSD is involved, isn't it? With, don't they have a representative on the?
Well, I haven't seen it yet, but I think they're going to. Not everyone was able to come. I mean, it's like anything else. You get into this time of year and vacations and
Yeah.
all of that will, it's not perfect
What
time.
was Tyrone's input, the superintendent's input?
He was pretty quiet, mostly. He would answer questions more from his own staff. Was not committing to anything yet, but I kind of expect that from government. It's
I'm gonna chat with them because I know Harper's Ferry gets out of operation because of high water, maybe 7-8 times in the last 10 years. That's from memory, but it's horrible. I've kayaked down Shenandoah Street 3 or 4 times. And it behooves them to be a leader in this.
I think they're going to play a significant part. I think my concern with anytime we deal with national government institutions is their inability to move.
They're going to what?
Their inability to move or their unwillingness sometimes to move.
Oh.
If they hold, they suffer some of the most severe consequences, but they also hold the keys to the car in the fact that they can make things happen because we have to cross, their lands and how easy or difficult they make that. So any influence that you have, it can't hurt.
They're crucial players.
I agree.
And it behooves them to work with us on this because they get hurt the most.
I
That's,
know at one point, and I forget when it was, when they were doing some major renovation down there, they put in a system so that when there's floods coming, of course, they pull everything out. But they've got these now trap doors in the floors that they pull open and they just push all the stuff and then it goes down. I'm not sure how that all works, but I do know that they've made that improvement.
and they're dealing with, what did come up though, Jim, was the fact that they have several of their buildings with basements flooding on an increasingly frequent basis.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
those,
yes, that came up.
those 2 museums on the south side of High Street have been closed forever. And, and it's really unfortunate because that Black Voices Museum is just one of the most important resources in the park.
Well, and let's face it, it's all critically important to us. I mean, and to West Virginia in total. I mean, as tourism starts to really get the recognition of how important it is to economies, it is critical. And like I say, and on top of that, this is where we live, and we all have to figure out a way to make it the best it can be. So
I have another idea, the involvement of the river outfitters, river and trail, river riders, because they, again, water is important to them, and they're having a large portions of the town vacating on the river because it's too high, too dangerous. I'm going to reach out to them.
Let me run that by Storm.
Okay,
I'd like to, I will, I wanted to make a note of it because
Okay.
I think that if I start, Storm and I are really trying to also keep this kind of dialed in and tight.
Focused a bit.
So we really set like priorities for these meetings so that, because you know how it is, you get
Yeah.
8 different entities represented in a meeting and you get on tangents that take you off. We
Yeah,
really want to
committee,
keep
yeah.
it down to like 4
Yeah.
real heavy priorities and just not get off track.
I'm with you.
So.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions, comments, ideas? Let's go on to tree committee then. I got a little, just a brief report from Tyler Mayhew. If I can find it. And for some reason, it printed very tiny font on my computer. One thing is that their meeting, because of the holidays, has been postponed to next Thursday, the 30th, for its quarterly regular meeting, which was to be this Thursday. He says the only item on the agenda will be approval of minutes from the quarterly regular meeting held February 24th, 2022. So it didn't sound like an earth-shattering meeting. The tree committee conducted the town's Arbor Day celebration on April 30th, 2022 by planting 2 new street trees on Fillmore Street in front of Mather Training Center and removing ivy from various street trees in the Camp Hill neighborhood. And I did make mention of that last month, but again, I'd like to thank all of the tree committee and all the volunteers who were involved in that activity. That's great. Appreciate their work. And he also says in July, the tree committee will meet to approve its Tree City USA demonstration city grant proposal for the upcoming year. The grant proposal will then need to be approved by the Planning Commission and forwarded to the Town Council for approval. We would appreciate it if the PC can take that item up at its July meeting so that we can get it on the Town Council's agenda ASAP. So be watching for that next month.
I can tell you that the pre-committee procured and put down 63 yards of, no, not 63 yards, 63 cubic feet of mulch around the new trees throughout the town,
Oh, mhm.
because I delivered it.
Yeah, a lot of work, yeah.
No, they did, Christy and Robert do,
Yeah,
literally, they did basically, other than me bringing it all, it was, they did the work. They,
yeah, and their work is appreciated. I know that they're kind of anxious. Christy has emailed me a couple of times about the budget figures too. So that, along with comprehensive plan, that's another thing I've got to sleuth out from budget and finance and Deb Kelly when she returns. So that is it from the tree committee. Any concerns or comments, things we ought to share with them? Okay.
how will their plan be shared? You mentioned that they were going to share their plan in July.
Well, it's going to come before us on our agenda for
Okay.
approval. And so we'll know some of the details. That is the Tree City USA demonstration city grant proposal.
Yes, yeah.
For the upcoming year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they're proposing.
Do you know what the deadline is for that? Do you think you guys might have to have a special meeting? Because we were gonna take it to town council. You won't meet until after the upcoming town council meeting in July.
Well, Yeah, so unless there's a special town council meeting, it wouldn't happen with town council until August.
Right. And I don't know if there's a deadline to submit the grant.
He doesn't mention that.
There
I'll,
might be, I just want to, yeah, there might be, I'm going to ask, and then we may have to do some special meetings
yeah,
to get it done.
good point. I'll make sure that they're not pressed like, but
And maybe there isn't, maybe it's not until the end of August, and if that's the case, you're smooth
It
sailing.
might be fine, right?
Yep.
okay. Any other new business
Roberta's got
or
her hand up.
concerns? Roberta, you have a hand up?
Yes, thank you, Chris. Great meeting so far, everyone. Doing great. Yes, the new business item I'd like to bring up, I've looked at the town website over the past few months and still noticed that the planning commission's meeting minutes are grossly out of date. They're showing the draft meeting minutes. They're not showing the approved meeting minutes that we approved some time ago. And also when I communicated both to Kevin Cardin and the mayor and town office that there were some meeting minutes from the past that were missing. And agendas missing. So I asked for those to be posted on the website, and all of that data is still not up to date. So do we know what the status is of Kevin Cardin getting that all up to date?
Behind. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Roberto.
Is there-
I have put that concern out in emails. I'll try and talk personally to him soon about
Is there-
that.
Is there any talk that maybe it's time, I know they were talking about maybe updating the website. Is there any talk about getting the town website updated and having maybe someone manage the website? Maybe that would help Kevin be relieved of that duty?
I'd have to ask Pat Morse here if she's heard any updates on that. I know there was a interest and a concern in updating it, including from the recorder back a year ago, but I don't know that anything has happened on that.
No, we did, Debbie and I did some searches, and we did look into some third parties. We found some that were pretty reasonable
Uh-huh.
and could give us what we needed, but never went any further. So I
Okay.
think it might be something to bring back up, because I think Kevin is overwhelmed right now. And
Yeah.
we need to-
I think it makes sense anyway, just because of some of the other things that we want to communicate to be a more friendly tourist site, but also to be better with those within our own community from a communication standpoint. So I've heard different places that's being talked about, and the fact that it really does need significant improvement. But I obviously am nowhere near the level where I hear how actionable any of that is.
And I
But-
think overall, when it comes to minutes, I know Kevin will post the draft minutes when you go out to look at the documents for the meeting. But then they're just drafts, and there's never signed minutes out there. So you don't really know what is a final and what is a draft. And then Kevin said there is a place where there's a drop-down box that you can click on those, and if they're in there, it means they're approved. Well, if you don't know that, you don't know that. So I've looked at Bolivar, and after their meetings or during their meetings, they actually are signed, and then they are put up on their website. And Kevin had mentioned something about, and I don't understand the language, and I don't understand how you upload things to the website, but there was a difficulty, or I don't want to say problem, but there was something involving that he couldn't, that there was a reason why they weren't uploaded, but I think we might want to leave it at that
Mhm.
for every
I think it makes sense.
group,
Yeah,
including
I agree.
every group.
I agree.
I think particularly since Kevin has a new job, I think. he needs-
Exactly.
He needs to be able
Yeah.
to do his job and have
He's
some
busy.
time with the family at night.
I agree.
Yeah. So Roberta, your point is well taken. Let me add it to my to-do list to have a personal conversation with him and see what he thinks, where the council and staff could go with that.
Because right now, he's the webmaster for the website and he's the only one that can post anything. On Facebook, he holds the keys to Facebook, but Debbie has access to Facebook. She's a Facebook user. So Debbie can post something on Facebook.
Mhm.
And that's it. That's all. That's the only two people that. can do
Support
it.
the whole thing.
Right. And it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot to update and keep up.
Well, especially as everybody wants to change and improve it, right? Okay, that makes it
And you
just
can
all
look
more
at it
difficult.
and make it maybe not such a filing cabinet as, tourist friendly, like if
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to a town.
I
want
think
to
that's
see what's
critically
there.
important.
But yet again, you want to be able to find the information. So how do you find the information?
Yeah.
Without coming to town hall. So we
Well,
need some guidance on how do we accomplish both of those
Well,
things.
and right, should there be a separate one for community versus tourists? Is there how to structure that? And there's people a lot better than me to give guidance to that, but you really have to think about who's using it and what are you trying to address? What are you trying to fix? So,
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I move we adjourn.
who's got to bring back to be his comment? I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any comments or concerns? All in favor indicate with a raise of the hand or an aye.
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 Okay, thank you all for being here. Tim, everything going well up in Maine?
It's cold.
Oh, I bet, because it was cold down here.